Welcome back to the Early IB Foundations and Futures podcast for episode 2.
Episode 2.
Yeah, this is episode 2. And today we're going deep.
Taking a deep dive.
We're taking a deep dive into risky play.
Risky play. Yeah.
And I think this is something that really resonates with me because I have a 3-year-old who is constantly
testing those boundaries.
Well, testing those boundaries, yes, but also just like gravitating towards things that look dangerous to me.
I know.
You know, like, oh, don't climb up there. You're going to fall.
You're going to fall and hurt yourself.
Okay.
Don't jump off of that. You're going to break your leg.
But to them, it's just pure
fun.
And like, this is where I want to be.
Right.
This is amazing. This is exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what's really interesting is that, as adults, we tend to, I think we naturally have these fears and worries about our children getting hurt.
Right.
But research is actually showing that allowing them to engage in these risky play activities is actually crucial for their development.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like this paradox, right? Where our instinct is to protect them, but actually by allowing them to take these calculated risks, they're actually learning and growing in ways that we might not even realize.
So that's what we're going to unpack today.
We're going to unpack it.
And we're going to look at it through the lens of Dr. Helen Little, who is a senior lecturer in early childhood education and some other really interesting folks.
Absolutely, yeah.
And we're going to try to really get down to what does this actually look like?
Yeah, what is it?
What is it? Where do we draw the line?
Where's that line?
What are the benefits? And then how can we as adults create environments that support it without freaking out?
Right, exactly.
So, okay, let's start with I guess the most basic question. What is risky play?
What is risky play? Well, I think, we think about climbing trees.
Right. That's a classic example.
Yeah.
Maybe riding your bike really fast down a hill.
Yes.
Maybe it's even roughhousing with friends. Those activities that, maybe as adults we'd be like, be careful.
Right.
But to kids, it's just this exhilarating, exciting experience.
Yeah. And they're not even really thinking about the risk.
They're not thinking about the risk. They're just thinking about the fun.
Right.
And that's a really important distinction, I think, because it's their perception versus our perception.
Right.
And so, I think as adults, we need to kind of step back a little bit and try to see it from their perspective.
So how do we define it, though? Is there a textbook definition of risky play?
Well, there are a few different ways to define it, but one way to think about it is that it's any activity that involves a thrill or a challenge where there's a potential for, maybe a minor injury, like a scrape or a bruise.
Okay, so calculated risk.
Calculated risk, exactly.
Okay.
But it's not about putting children in danger.
Right.
It's about allowing them to explore their limits.
Okay, so where do we draw the line?
Yeah, that's the $1 million question, right?
Right.
And I think it's going to vary depending on the child, the environment.
Their age,
exactly.
Okay.
But I think a good rule of thumb is to, start by observing and kind of assessing the situation.
So if my kid's climbing up the slide and they're 3, I don't want to just let them fall and crack their head open.
Right.
But if they're climbing up the little play structure at the park and they're 5, it's probably okay if they fall, a couple of feet.
Yeah, and I think it's also about teaching them how to do it safely.
Right. So if they're climbing up the slide, maybe you're standing nearby and you're kind of guiding them.
Just spotting them.
Spotting them, yeah. And you're saying, okay, make sure you're holding on tight, use your feet. And you're teaching them those skills so that they can do it safely.
Okay.
And Dr. Sansater actually identified 6 different categories of risky play.
6. Okay, let's hear it.
All right. So the first one is play with heights.
Okay.
So that could be anything from, climbing a tree to standing on a high wall.
Okay.
The second one is play with high speed.
Okay.
So that could be, running really fast.
Right.
Riding your bike fast.
Down a hill,
yeah.
Yeah.
The third one is play with dangerous tools.
Okay, so real tools.
Well, not necessarily power tools or anything.
Right.
But it could be, using a hammer and nails or using a saw.
Okay.
But again, with supervision, obviously.
Right.
Right.
The fourth one is play with dangerous elements.
Okay.
So that could be things like fire or water.
Okay.
So, maybe building a campfire or playing in a stream.
Okay.
The fifth one is rough-and-tumble play.
Okay, so like wrestling.
Yeah, wrestling, chase and tag, exactly.
Okay.
And then the sixth one is play where children are out of sight from adults.
Okay.
So, maybe they're playing in the woods or they're playing in a big field where you can't see them.
Okay.
And so, each of these categories presents its own unique challenges and opportunities for development.
It's fascinating how, like, as you're describing these, I'm thinking back to my own childhood and I did all those things.
Right.
And I'm fine.
And you're fine, exactly.
So it really highlights that difference in perspective between the adults who are like,
don't do that.
Don't.
You're going to get hurt.
Right. And the kids who are just like,
this is awesome.
This is awesome. This is fun.
Yeah, like I'm going to climb this thing.
Exactly.
I'm going to jump off of this thing.
Yeah, and I think part of it is that children are just naturally more drawn to risk.
Yeah.
They're exploring the world. They're testing their limits. They're trying to figure out what they can do.
Yeah. And it's all very much
It's all part of the learning process.
Driven by their own curiosity.
Curiosity, yeah.
Not some, malicious intent.
They're not trying to hurt themselves.
Right. They're not trying to break their arm.
Right.
They're just trying to
see what they can do.
See what they can do.
Yeah.
Okay, so now that we've kind of established what it is and how we might identify it.
Right.
I want to talk about the benefits.
The benefits? Okay.
Yeah, because I think that's where a lot of adults are going to be like,
yeah.
Okay, I get it. It's fun.
Yeah.
But why should I let my kid do it?
Why should I let them risk getting hurt?
Right.
Exactly.
So let's dive into that in the next part of our conversation.
Sounds good. Welcome back
to the deep dive.
We've established what risky play is.
Yes.
We've talked about how to kind of
identify
it, categorize it.
Yeah.
But now let's talk about
the benefits.
The benefits.
Yes.
Why
should we care?
Why should we care? Why should we as parents, as caregivers, as educators, why should we be encouraging this?
Yeah, why should we let our kids climb that tree?
Right, exactly.
Well, I think there's a lot of research that's been done on this.
Okay.
And the benefits are really quite amazing.
Okay.
So let's start with the physical benefits because I think those are probably the most obvious.
Sure.
So when children engage in risky play,
they're using their bodies in all sorts of different ways.
Okay.
They're running, they're jumping, they're climbing, they're lifting, they're throwing.
So they're developing strength.
They're developing balance. Coordination, flexibility, all of those things.
It's like a full body workout.
It is a full body workout, exactly.
But they don't even realize it.
They're just having fun.
Because it's play.
Right?
Okay, so what else? What other physical benefits?
Well, risky play also helps to develop fine motor skills.
Okay.
So think about, a child who's climbing a tree.
Mm-hmm.
They're having to use their hands and their fingers
to grip,
to grasp,
to maneuver around the
Exactly. And that helps to develop those fine motor skills.
So it's not just gross motor.
It's not just gross motor, it's fine motor as well.
Okay, that's important.
Yeah, and those fine motor skills are important for all sorts of things.
Like writing.
Like writing, like using scissors. Getting dressed. Yeah, all of those things.
Okay, what about spatial awareness?
Spatial awareness.
Yeah, does risky play help with that?
It absolutely does.
Okay.
So when children are engaging in risky play, they're having to be aware of their body in space.
Right.
They're having to judge distances.
Yeah.
They're having to figure out how to move their body in relation to other objects.
So if they're climbing,
yeah,
they have to figure out where to put their feet.
Exactly. Where to put their hands.
How to shift their weight.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's all spatial awareness.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about the physical benefits. What about emotional benefits?
Emotional benefits. Yeah, those are huge.
Okay.
So one of the biggest emotional benefits of risky play is that it helps children to develop resilience.
Okay.
So resilience is the ability to bounce back from setbacks.
Right.
To cope with stress and adversity. And risky play gives children opportunities to practice those skills.
How so?
Well, think about, a child who's climbing a tree.
Okay.
They might fall.
Right.
They might get scraped up.
Right, but they get back up.
They get back up, exactly.
They try again.
They try again, and they learn that it's okay to fail.
Okay.
It's okay to make mistakes.
Yeah.
And that they can overcome those challenges.
So they're learning to manage their fear.
They're learning to manage their fear. They're learning to manage their frustration.
Right.
And they're learning that they can do hard things.
Okay. That's powerful.
It is powerful, yeah.
What other emotional benefits are there?
Well, risky play also helps to develop confidence.
Yep.
So when children overcome challenges, when they do things that they thought they couldn't do, they feel a sense of accomplishment.
Right.
They feel proud of themselves.
That makes sense.
And that builds their confidence.
Okay, so risky play builds resilience. It builds confidence.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Well, it also helps children to develop a sense of self-efficacy.
Self-efficacy, what's that?
So self-efficacy is the belief in one's own ability to succeed.
Okay.
It's the belief that you can do what you set out to do.
Okay.
And risky play gives children opportunities to test their limits, to see what they're capable of.
Yeah.
And when they succeed, it reinforces that sense of self-efficacy.
Okay, so it's not just about like the physical act of doing something.
Right.
It's about the mental and emotional.
It's about the mindset.
The mindset.
Yeah.
Okay, that's really interesting. So we've talked about physical benefits, emotional benefits.
Right.
What about social benefits?
Social benefits? Yeah, there are a lot of those too.
Okay, let's hear it.
So one of the biggest social benefits of risky play is that it helps children to learn how to interact with each other.
Okay.
So when they're playing together, they're having to negotiate, they're having to cooperate, they're having to communicate. Take turns?
Take turns, exactly. Here, yeah.
Right.
And all of those skills are essential for social development.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
What about like conflict resolution?
Conflict resolution, yeah. Risky play can help with that too.
Okay.
So when children are playing, there are bound to be disagreements.
Right.
There are bound to be conflicts.
Someone's going to hog the swing.
Someone's going to hog the swing, exactly.
Right.
But risky play gives children opportunities to work through those conflicts.
Okay.
To learn how to compromise.
Right.
To learn how to stand up for themselves.
Yeah.
But also to learn how to respect others.
Okay.
And those are all really important skills for life, really.
Right. For healthy relationships.
For healthy relationships, exactly.
Okay, so we've got physical benefits, emotional benefits, social benefits.
Yeah.
It's like risky play is a superpower.
It kind of is, yeah.
Like, it does all these amazing things.
It does. It really does.
Okay, so now that we understand the benefit,
let's talk about how we as adults can actually support this.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the next big hurdle.
Yeah, that's the challenge.
Right. Like how do we
let go?
How do we let go
of that control?
How do we create environments that encourage this type of play?
Right. And how do we manage our own anxieties about it?
Right.
So let's dive into that in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay. So we've explored the benefits of risky play.
Yeah.
It's good for the body. It's good for the mind. It's good for their social development.
It's good for everything.
It's good for everything. But I think a lot of adults listening right now are probably still thinking, but what about the risks?
What if they get hurt?
What if they get hurt?
Right.
And it's natural, right?
It is.
We're programmed
to
protect our kids.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how do we balance that?
Like, how do we balance that natural instinct to protect with this understanding that actually a little bit of risk is good?
Yeah, it's a tough one.
It is tough.
But I think it starts with understanding that our goal isn't to eliminate risk entirely.
Okay.
It's to teach children how to manage risk.
Manage it.
Yeah, so it's about shifting our mindset from preventing every fall to equipping them to handle those stumbles.
Okay.
So we want them to learn how to fall safely.
Right.
We want them to learn how to assess a situation.
Make good decisions.
Make good decisions, exactly.
Okay, so practically speaking.
Yeah.
How do we do that?
Well, I think one of the most important things is to create environments that support risky play.
Okay.
So that means providing opportunities for children to challenge themselves.
Okay.
To explore their limits.
So what does that look like?
Well, think about playgrounds. Okay. Playgrounds that have natural elements.
Okay.
Like trees, rocks, hills.
Those are the best playgrounds?
Those are the fun playgrounds.
Yeah.
Yeah, the ones that aren't just plastic and metal and...
Yeah, cookie cutter playgrounds.
Yeah, exactly.
Where everything is, perfectly safe.
Right, right.
So those natural elements provide a lot of opportunities for children to climb, to balance, to jump.
To take risks.
To take risks, exactly.
Right. Okay, so natural playgrounds are good.
Natural playgrounds are great.
But what about, if we're not at a natural playground, what can we do at home?
Well, you can still create opportunities for risky play at home.
Okay.
Even just providing some simple things like
what?
Like cardboard boxes, blankets,
clothes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Those things can be turned into all sorts of different things.
Forts.
Castles, tunnels.
Right. So it's about being creative.
It's about being creative, exactly.
Okay. And I think it's also important to remember that risky play doesn't have to be big and elaborate.
Right.
It could be small and simple.
Absolutely.
Like letting your kid climb up on the couch or jump off a low wall.
Yeah. Or even just, giving them a little bit more freedom to explore their surroundings.
Right. Like don't be afraid to let them get a little bit dirty.
Exactly.
Let them get a little bit messy.
Yeah. It's all part of the learning process.
Okay. So we've talked about creating environments that support risky play.
Uh-huh.
What about us as adults?
Yeah, what about our anxieties?
What about our anxieties? Like how do we
manage those?
How do we manage those? Because it's one thing to say, okay, risky play is good.
Right.
But it's another thing to actually let your kid
climb that tree.
Right. And not have a heart attack.
Right.
Right. So
what do we do?
Yeah, what do we do?
Well, I think the first thing is to remember that children are more capable than we often give them credit for.
Okay.
They have a natural instinct for self-preservation.
Okay.
They're not going to intentionally put themselves in danger.
Right.
So trust them.
Trust them. Okay.
Trust their instincts.
Easier said than done.
I know.
But okay, I'm trying.
Yeah, just try to take a deep breath.
Okay.
And observe the situation before you jump in.
Okay.
Ask yourself, is the child truly in danger?
Oh.
Or are they just navigating a challenge?
So is this a moment where I need to step in?
Right.
Or is this a moment where I can just let them figure it out?
Exactly.
Okay.
And if you do need to intervene, try to guide them rather than dictating.
Okay, what does that mean?
So instead of saying, get down from there,
right,
you could say, how are you planning to get down safely?
Okay, so make them think about it.
Make them think about it, yeah.
Okay.
And come up with their own solution.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think that applies to, a lot of different situations.
It does, yeah.
Not just risky play.
Right.
But just, parenting in general.
Yeah, it's about giving them the opportunity to problem solve.
Right, to learn from their mistakes.
Exactly.
Okay, so to kind of wrap all this up, I think, risky play it can be scary.
It can.
For us as adults.
For sure.
But when we understand the benefits and we learn how to create environments that support it,
right,
and we manage our own anxieties, it can be a really powerful tool.
It can.
For helping children develop into confident, resilient, capable people.
Exactly.
So let them climb those trees.
Let them climb.
Let them jump off those walls.
One jump.
Let them build those forts.
Let them explore.
Let them explore.
Yeah.
And let them learn and grow through all of it.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for this deep dive into risky play.
It's been a pleasure.
It's been really enlightening.
And glad.
And I hope our listeners learned a lot too.
Me too.